Hey, what's going on, my friends? Welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Victor, and I help people navigate through their spiritual awakening process. And today's video, I'm going to share with you 5 awesome spiritual books I bet you have not heard of. Maybe a couple of you have heard of some of these, but these are some real gems. They made a huge impact on my life and my spiritual journey, especially. And I just don't oftentimes see them talked about or mentioned. So I figured I would share them with you in hopes they might enrich your life to the same degree they have mine. And this little guy in particular I found recently, a few months ago, and it's my favorite one out of all of them. I'm going to wait till the end to share that one. But the first one up is called Awareness by Anthony DeMello. Anthony DeMello is kind of in a league of his own, I would say, when it comes to being a spiritual teacher. Somebody who, at least I would gather, speaks like many from that place of oneness. Someone who really has achieved enlightenment, and then from that consciousness writes and talks and teaches from that place. But what makes him unique is how blunt, comical, and sometimes abrasive he is, which I know might kind of sound like unappealing. But to me, it's if you can take doses of raw truth being kind of spat at you and do something with it, which oftentimes a criticism or something that provokes awareness that you might not really feel good in the moment, it leads to positive change. And I've read this book a couple of times, I'd say, through. I've read some of his other books as well. And again, if you're someone who is looking for kind of like a sometimes crass, comical, yet deep, authentic spiritual teaching, something out of the ordinary, then I cannot recommend this bad boy enough. Number 2 is kind of what sparked this conversation, honestly. It's called The Handbook to Higher Consciousness. It's actually kind of a popular book by a guy named Ken Keyes Jr. There's over 1 million in print. But again, I don't see a lot of people talking about it. And this guy is very unique because he was a very successful business person. He had a spiritual awakening later in life. He was a paraplegic. He was very, very wealthy. In fact, for many years, he lived on a yacht. But because he was able to kind of achieve a high level of all the different things that most human beings are striving for in terms of like having lots of power, lots of an abundance of stimulation, you could say, because he was so wealthy. He was really, even though he was a paraplegic, he was really good with women and had lots of different women. And he just could afford to do all the things most of us kind of fantasize about. And he got there. But because he got there, he was able to see firsthand that those things ultimately left him feeling hollow and unhappy and seemed to be, in the end, kind of a destructive force in his life. And unlike people like Eckhart Tolle and certain people who have these like spontaneous awakenings, this is somebody who really kind of step by step, slowly but surely forged his way into higher consciousness, and then eventually abandoned all of his spoils and riches and things like that, and dedicated the rest of his life to like living his principles and to teaching. And there's a lot of like things you probably heard before, but it's put forth in a very, I would say, systematic way that whether you take everything as like gospel, which I don't, the way he presents this information is very grounded and practical, things that you can like really apply to your day-to-day life with a noticeable improvement, I would say. For example, one of the things he really gets into is understanding that anything in your life that you don't like, it's not because of the thing, it's because of your, what he calls addictive programming. And there are these different types of programming. There's like the survival. So things that happen in your life that make you feel kind of unsafe. That's one type of like compulsive thing we try to fulfill, always futilely. We never have enough safety, as an example. Another one is sensation. Many of us are seeking enlightenment unconsciously through getting more stuff. In fact, he had this interesting ayahuasca experience where the whole trip was like him having orgasms over and over and over and over and over again. And it was kind of a reflection that it was like he didn't like it. It became very uncomfortable and kind of intrusive, and he realized that you can never get enough of this stuff overindulgence leads to misery, even in the things that you think you like, or even in the things that produce temporary pleasure. The third one, without going through all of them, is power. A lot of times we try to fulfill this sense of power by control, by manipulation, and things like that. And there are just day-to-day things that come along in our life that will trigger this sort of programming, and then we'll try to respond from them. So that's just a little snippet. There's much more to it. But he talks about how to like work through those programmings based upon what's going on in your life and move up into the higher programs, which is like living in the heart, love, and then there's this other one called cornucopia, which basically implies you're in harmony with the divine will and you experience lots of synchronicity and just a very graceful unfolding of your life. And there's other ones as well. But anyway, Handbook to Higher Consciousness, solid. This other one is from Oddo. A lot of you probably have heard of Oddo. He's very well known, an amazing, deep spiritual teacher, someone who worked his way towards enlightenment, which is what I like about him in particular. He wasn't someone who just had it happen to them and then speaks from that place, which can be of value, but most of us are kind of going through an awakening process, and he did as well. But he did to the point where he did finally reach enlightenment, at least from how I would label it, you could say. And this is his very first book. It's called The Way of Liberation. It's a very small book, and I like it. It's interesting to me because you could tell it's coming from someone who just got there, who just got into this space of oneness, and he speaks about it in a different way than someone who has had it for a while. In fact, he even says, maybe in this book or another book, that there are levels of enlightenment. It's not like this one thing. It's like there are depths and degrees and different perspectives within that spectrum of higher consciousness. And he's speaking from like the very first glimpse of having it, having attained it. And I like it because it's kind of like Anthony DeMello, kind of blunt, kind of almost like, not aggressive, that's not the right word, but it's very like matter of fact. Like this is the no BS guide to enlightenment, basically. It's a practical guide to spiritual enlightenment, Oddo, real solid. You can see as life has gone on with him, he's kind of calmed down a little bit and gotten more into a compassionate, heart-centered place, more patience with people. But this is like a no BS guide to enlightenment. And if you can kind of handle that type of approach, I find a lot of value in it. And I like it because it's kind of different. Another one that's awesome is called Living with Kundalini by Gopi Krishna. This is someone who experienced one of the most intense, well-documented cases of a Kundalini awakening. Like Oddo, he was someone who was sort of pursuing enlightenment, and he kind of got what he asked for. And he had this Kundalini awakening, which many of you know about, is kind of like when it's like the energetic component of awakening. It's like a stored up energy most people are said to have at the base of their spine. And for some people, it never really opens up. For some people, it comes on slowly, which is most of us. But for him, it kind of like burst open, and his whole body was flooded with all this like psychic energy that has one goal, and that's to purge you of all of the different energies of conditioning and entrapment of the true self. But what's cool about this is he kind of concluded, and this may be something you've experienced, that there is most certainly a biological component to the spiritual awakening. It's not just shifting your mindset and all of a sudden you see things different. It's like to actually embody or even reach higher consciousness in the way many of us are trying to do. It's like a physiological evolution. And it can happen very quickly, but if it does, it's actually quite disruptive to your life and your health. And I experienced some of that with my own Kundalini awakening, not to the degree of him. For him, there were multiple times when he got to the point where he couldn't stomach food. And for like 2 or 3 times in his life, he was on his deathbed, like literally like on the verge of dying. His physical body was about to give up because of all this psychic energy. It was such a leap of evolution that his body almost broke and his psyche almost broke. In fact, it was interesting because he had this ability to where he could like just sort of close his eyes and like go into utter unity bliss. And he said when you would do that, it was like so nice for obvious reasons. Imagine if you could like close your eyes and just merge with God basically and feel that divine bliss whenever you wanted. Why would you ever want to come out of it? But he found when he did that, when he kind of indulged in that, that's when it would like allow too much of a rapid processing of his own spiritual evolution. And he had to learn to kind of discipline himself to not indulge in this bliss. It's interesting. You think if you just let go into God or let go into bliss, you'd be hunky-dory, but it's like too much light too soon is difficult for our human body. And anyway, it's like it talks all about the ins and outs and ups and downs of his spiritual journey. In the end, he turned out to be one heck of a guy, an amazing spiritual teacher, full of love, light, a real embodiment of where most of us are trying to get. And this last one I just found in a cool bookstore in it's just outside of Austin, Texas. There's a guy named Ryan Holiday, which I love all of his books as well. Not really about spiritual enlightenment per se. And he's got this really cool, unique, boutique bookstore with all his favorite books. And I found this book. It's by someone you probably know. It's by Ethan Hawke, the actor. It's he's not like the teacher or anything, but what this is, he found, or someone in his family, the Hawke family, I don't know, I think maybe 30 or 50 years ago, found this binder of letters written by this awesome knight back in, I think, the 1400s, I want to say. And there was this knight that was out to battle, and he didn't think he was going to make it home, but he has these young children back at home, so he wrote them one night when he was about to go into this hairy battle. He stayed up all night writing these different letters about life, trying to almost like, I know I'm going to probably die tomorrow, so I'm going to give you all I got. And this knight had this really awesome teacher. And anyway, the book goes into different things. Let's see, different virtues like gratitude, faith, courage, honesty, patience, all things we've heard about. But he has such a beautiful, authentic, wise way of conveying it. There's little stories he'll tell. And to me, it's one of the most soulful, beautifully written, unpretentious books I've ever read. And it really it brings me to tears sometimes just to read some of these chapters. It's just so from the soul. There was no agenda, there was no attempt, there was no need to get this out to the masses. He literally was doing it from a place of love just to help out his children who he suspected might not see him again. And this is one of those books that I would read a chapter a day. It's like, I don't know, 5 or 10 pages, courage, generosity, on these different little topics. And it was, in fact, I might go back through it. I just got done with it recently, but I might go back through it now I'm talking about it because it was such a wonderful way to start the day. So anyways, my friends, what about you? I know we've all read The Power of Now and all these other books, which I'm a huge fan of. Do you have any cool books? I'd be interested to see if you have any cool books like this, books that have really impacted you, but you don't oftentimes see people talking about it. Why don't you leave them in the comments below? I'd love to see it for myself, and I think it might be cool that we can all just kind of share our favorite books, because to me, one good book can literally change the course of a person's life. That's why I'm such a fan of reading. So I'd love to hear your favorite books, my friend. Thank you for watching. I'll see you soon.